All right, ready to dive into The Power of Letting Go by John Purkiss today.
Sounds good.
You brought us this book, and it's all about personal transformation and fulfillment, but there's a twist. It draws heavily on Vedic traditions.
Yeah, those are fascinating.
Now, for anyone who might not be familiar with Vedic traditions, they're basically a collection of ancient Indian texts, and they emphasize things like consciousness, interconnectedness, and the idea that we're all part of, like a larger cosmic reality. Pretty deep stuff.
Definitely.
So I'm curious, in doing this deep dive, are you hoping to actually let go of something specific? Or are you more interested in just exploring the philosophy behind it all?
That's a good question. I think what really fascinates me about this book is how Purkis blends this ancient wisdom with modern practicality. He doesn't just talk about abstract concepts. He gives real-world examples, and he even shares his own experiences with things like clinical depression and career struggles. He seems really focused on giving you actionable steps, to actually apply these principles to your life.
I have to admit, I'm a sucker for a good personal story. But I'm also a bit skeptical, do these ancient techniques actually hold up in our modern world? Let's see if Purkis delivers.
Well, he starts by outlining this three-stage process of letting go. And the first stage might seem surprisingly simple. It's all about being present.
Being present, that's a buzzword we hear everywhere these days.
Yeah.
What makes Purkis's approach to being present unique?
He calls it taming the monkey mind, that constant chatter that jumps from one thought to the next, rarely staying focused on the present moment. He argues that this mental chaos is what keeps us from experiencing true peace and fulfillment.
Oh, I know that monkey mind all too well. Sometimes it feels like mine's doing parkour up there.
Exactly. And Purkis suggests a simple yet powerful technique to tame this mental monkey, breath-focused meditation.
Okay.
It's about gently bringing your attention back to the breath whenever you notice your mind wandering. It's not about emptying your mind completely, but rather it's about learning to just observe your thoughts without getting swept away by them.
Huh. You've got me intrigued, but I really struggle with meditation. Whenever I try to quiet my mind, it feels like it just screams louder.
That's completely normal. The key is to approach meditation with a sense of curiosity and non-judgment. Instead of getting frustrated when thoughts arise, just simply acknowledge them and gently redirect your attention back to the breath. Purkis even shares a personal anecdote about how this lack of presence almost had some serious consequences for him. He was so focused on his goals and to-do lists that he wasn't paying attention to the road, which led to a series of minor car accidents.
Whoa, that's a wake-up call.
Ah.
Yeah, it's easy to get so caught up in our heads that we totally lose touch with what's happening right in front of us.
Exactly. And being present isn't just about avoiding accidents. It's about making better decisions, having more meaningful connections, and experiencing life more fully.
That makes sense. But how does simply noticing your breath lead to all of that?
Well, when you practice being present, you create a space between stimulus and response. Instead of reacting impulsively to your thoughts and emotions, you have the opportunity to choose how you want to respond.
So it's about gaining more control over our reactions, not letting our emotions run the show.
Precisely. And that space between stimulus and response, that's where our true power lies. It's where we can tap into our wisdom, our intuition, and our ability to make choices that are aligned with our values.
All right, I'm starting to see the potential here. But let's be honest, simply being present doesn't magically make all our problems disappear.
Right.
What about all those negative thoughts and limiting beliefs that keep holding us back?
Right. Well, that brings us to stage 2, letting go of thoughts. This is where Purkis really dives into the power of detaching from our mental chatter.
I can already hear some of our listeners saying, yeah, right, just stop thinking, easier said than done. So what's the secret?
It's not about stopping thoughts altogether, but rather changing our relationship to them. Purkis explains that we often get stuck by identifying with our thoughts. We think, I'm having a negative thought, therefore I must be a negative person. But he argues that our thoughts are not who we are. They're simply transient mental events.
So instead of getting caught up in the content of our thoughts, we can learn to observe them without judgment, kind of like we do with the breath and meditation.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that thoughts come and go like clouds, and we don't have to cling to everyone that passes by. And this is especially important when it comes to, negative self-talk.
Oh, the stories we tell ourselves. I think we all have that inner critic that loves to point out our flaws and keep us playing small.
Absolutely. And Purkiss argues that these negative thought patterns often stem from past experiences. He shares a compelling example in the book about a woman named Jack who had a deep-seated belief that wealthy people were inherently bad.
So she was basically sabotaging her own success because she was afraid of becoming someone she didn't want to be.
Exactly, and her belief stemmed from her childhood experiences. She grew up in a family that viewed wealth with suspicion, believing that anyone who had, significant financial abundance must have acquired it through, unethical means. This early conditioning created a subconscious block that prevented her from achieving her full potential.
It's amazing how these early experiences can shape our beliefs and behaviors, even if we're not consciously aware of it.
And to help us identify these limiting beliefs, Purkis offers a practical exercise, the labeling exercise. He suggests taking a piece of paper and writing down all the negative labels you use for yourself.
Oof, I think I need a pretty big piece of paper for that one. But I'm curious, what's the purpose of writing down those labels?
It brings those subconscious beliefs to the surface, so you can start to examine them. Once you've listed those labels, take some time to question their validity. Ask yourself, is this really true? What evidence do I have to support this?
So it's about challenging those ingrained beliefs and seeing if they actually hold up under scrutiny.
Exactly. And then here's the really interesting part. Purkis suggests exploring the payoff those labels provide.
Right. Negative labels can have a payoff. That doesn't make sense.
Well, think about it. Sometimes those negative labels can actually serve a purpose, even if it's an unhealthy one. For example, if you label yourself as a procrastinator, it might allow you to avoid the discomfort of putting yourself out there and potentially failing.
So it's a way to protect ourselves from uncomfortable feelings, but it also keeps us stuck in those same patterns.
Exactly. By identifying the payoff, you can start to understand why you might be clinging to these negative beliefs. And once you understand the why, it becomes much easier to let them go.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on how our minds work. But what about the really deep stuff, the painful memories and emotional wounds that we carry with us? How do we let go of that kind of baggage?
That brings us to the third stage of letting go of pain. This is where Purkis gets into some really powerful techniques for healing those deeper emotional wounds. And he argues that the key is to face those painful memories head on instead of trying to suppress them.
So running away from our pain only gives it more power.
Exactly. He introduces a technique called completion, which involves reliving those past painful incidents in a safe and controlled environment.
Reliving them. That sounds intense and maybe a bit scary.
It can be, but he emphasizes the importance of allowing all the feelings to come up, the sadness, anger, fear, without judgment or resistance. The idea is that by fully experiencing those emotions, we release their hold on us.
I can see how that would be incredibly liberating, but also potentially overwhelming. Does he give specific guidance on how to do this completion technique?
Yes, he walks you through the process step by step. He suggests finding a quiet space where you feel safe and comfortable. Then you can connect with yourself, maybe by looking in a mirror, and begin to relive the incident out loud as though it's happening in the present moment.
So you're basically telling the story of the painful event, allowing yourself to feel all the emotions that come up.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that you're not trying to change the past or make it different. You're simply acknowledging what happened and allowing yourself to feel the full range of emotions associated with it.
It sounds like this technique requires a lot of courage and self-compassion.
It does. But Purkis argues that it's essential for breaking free from the patterns of pain that keep us stuck in the past. He shares several compelling examples in the book of how this technique has helped people overcome phobias, heal from trauma, and create more fulfilling relationships.
That's pretty powerful. I can see how this completion technique could be a game changer for people who are struggling with past hurts. But isn't there a risk of getting re-traumatized by reliving those painful memories?
That's a valid concern. And Purkis emphasizes the importance of doing this work with a qualified therapist or counselor if you've experienced significant trauma. It's not something to be taken lightly.
That makes sense. It's important to have the right support when dealing with these deeper emotional issues.
Absolutely. And even if you haven't experienced major trauma, it can still be beneficial to do this work with a trusted guide, someone who can, hold space for you and offer support as you navigate those
Yeah.
difficult emotions.
It's like having a skilled Sherpa to guide you through the treacherous terrain of your own psyche.
I like that analogy. And Purkis provides additional tips for making this process as safe and effective as possible. For example, he suggests starting with with smaller, less intense memories before tackling the bigger ones. He also emphasizes the importance of self-care during this process, making sure to engage in activities that bring you joy and nourish your soul.
So it's not about punishing ourselves by dwelling on the pain. It's about approaching this work with gentleness and compassion.
Exactly. It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness we would offer a dear friend who is hurting.
This whole conversation is making me realize how interconnected these three stages of letting go really are. It's like a step-by-step process of reclaiming our power and creating a more fulfilling life.
That's a great observation. And in the book, Purkis takes this concept even further, introducing the idea of surrender as the ultimate let go. This is where we really start to tap into that Vedic wisdom we talked about earlier.
Okay, I'm ready for the ultimate let go. What does surrender mean in this context?
It's about letting go of the need to control everything, trusting that there's a higher intelligence at work in the universe.
That sounds incredibly liberating, but also a bit scary. What if we surrender and everything falls apart?
That's a common fear. But Purkis argues that surrender isn't about giving up or becoming passive. It's about aligning ourselves with the natural flow of life.
So it's more about working with the universe, not against it.
Exactly. And he suggests that when we surrender our need to control, we open ourselves to possibilities that we could never have imagined on our own.
This is starting to sound very Zen-like, embracing the unknown and trusting the process.
It does align with many Eastern philosophies, but what's unique about Purkis's approach is that he combines these ancient wisdom traditions with practical tools and techniques that we can apply in our modern lives.
And that's what makes this book so compelling. It's not just about airy-fairy concepts. It's about actionable steps we can take to transform our experience of reality.
Exactly. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore how this principle of surrender plays out in different areas of our lives, from our careers to our relationships.
I'm excited to see where this journey takes us. It feels like we're just scratching the surface of a profound and transformative philosophy.
It's going to be a fascinating exploration.
All right, we'll be back soon to continue unpacking the power of letting go. See you then.
See you. Welcome back to our deep dive into the power of letting go.
You know, as we were talking about surrender being the ultimate let go in the last part, I started thinking about how counterintuitive that idea feels, especially when it comes to our careers. We're always told to hustle harder, plan meticulously, and never give up. But Purkis seems to suggest that sometimes the key to success actually lies in letting go of that tight grip on the reins.
Yeah, it's a fascinating paradox. He explains that our brains are hardwired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, which, makes sense as a primal survival mechanism. But in our modern world, this wiring can actually keep us stuck in patterns that no longer serve us, particularly in our careers.
So we might stay in a job we hate because we're terrified of the financial instability that comes with quitting.
Exactly.
Or we might avoid going for a promotion because we're afraid of, like, the sting of rejection.
Precisely. And these fears are often rooted in past experiences. Those energetic imprints we talked about earlier, those past hurts can create a subconscious blueprint that dictates our decisions, even when those decisions aren't aligned with our true desires.
So it's not just about positive thinking or visualizing success. It's about addressing those deeper emotional wounds that might be fueling our fear and keeping us playing small.
Exactly. That's where the power of letting go comes in. By releasing those fears through techniques like completion, we can free ourselves to make choices that are guided by our intuition and our true calling, not by our conditioned responses.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But how do we actually apply this principle of surrender to our careers? Does it mean we should all just quit our jobs and hope for the best?
Not necessarily. Purkis emphasizes that taking action is still important. But it's a different kind of action. It's inspired action guided by intuition and a deep sense of trust, not fueled by fear or desperation.
So it's about listening to that inner voice, that gut feeling that whispers, this is the path for you, even if it doesn't make logical sense.
Exactly. And to cultivate that inner guidance system, he recommends paying attention to the synchronicities that show up in our lives.
Ooh, I love synchronicities. Those little winks from the universe, those seemingly random coincidences that feel like they're trying to tell us something.
Precisely. He suggests keeping a journal to track these synchronicities, no matter how small or insignificant they might seem. By acknowledging and reflecting on these synchronicities, we can start to see patterns and gain valuable insights into the direction we're meant to be heading.
It's like learning to speak the language of the universe, deciphering those subtle signs and symbols that are guiding us toward our highest good.
Beautifully put. And as we become more fluent in this cosmic language, we can navigate our careers with more ease and flow, trusting that we're being supported every step of the way.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to work.
Yeah.
What if, instead of struggling and forcing things to happen, we could approach our careers with a sense of, like, playfulness and curiosity, trusting that the right opportunities will come our way at the perfect time?
That's the beauty of surrender. It doesn't mean we become passive or complacent. It simply means we release our rigid grip on how things should be
Yeah.
and allow ourselves to be guided by a force greater than our own limited perspective.
Did you were saying that?
Purkiss shares a story in the book about a client who was experiencing a major creative block. They were trying to come up with a new marketing campaign, but nothing was working. So he encouraged them to take a break, step away from the problem, and engage in something completely different, like going for a walk in nature.
It's amazing how often the solutions we seek come to us when we stop striving so hard and allow ourselves to simply be. So it's not always about conscious effort. It's about creating space for those aha moments to emerge.
Exactly. And that's why surrender is such a powerful tool, especially in the realm of creativity. It's about trusting the creative process, knowing that inspiration often strikes when we least expect it.
This is making me want to approach my work with a lot more lightness and trust. Like, what if we could all tap into that childlike sense of wonder and allow our work to become a source of joy and fulfillment, rather than a constant source of, stress and pressure?
That's a beautiful vision, and Purkis argues that this attitude of surrender can lead to greater peace and contentment in all areas of our lives, not just our careers.
Okay, now that's a bold claim. How does he support that?
He explains that when we're constantly striving and attaching ourselves to outcomes, we're essentially setting ourselves up for disappointment. We put our happiness on hold, thinking, I'll be happy when I achieve this goal, when I get that promotion, when I reach that financial milestone.
It's like that never-ending chase for the carrot on a stick, always reaching for something
No.
just out of reach.
Precisely. But when we let go of that attachment to outcomes, we can experience a profound shift in our perspective. We can start to find joy in the present moment, regardless of our external circumstances.
So it's not about giving up on our goals or ambitions. It's about approaching them with a different attitude, a sense of detachment from the outcome.
Exactly. It's like saying, I'm going to give this my best effort, but I'm not going to attach my worth or my happiness to the results. And paradoxically, this detachment can actually enhance our performance.
Because we're not weighed down by the pressure to succeed, we can tap into a more effortless flow.
Precisely. And to cultivate this sense of contentment, Purkis emphasizes the importance of gratitude.
Ah, gratitude, the antidote to that constant striving and yearning for more.
Exactly. He suggests a simple practice. At the end of each day, write down 10 things you're grateful for, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant.
Okay, that seems simple enough, but what's the point of writing it down?
It shifts our focus from what we lack to what we already have. It's a way of training our minds to appreciate the abundance that already exists in our lives.
So instead of dwelling on our problems or comparing ourselves to others, we're consciously choosing to focus on the good things, the blessings that we often take for granted.
Precisely. And this shift in perspective can have a profound impact on our overall well-being.
This reminds me of a friend who was going through a really rough time. She was dealing with a breakup, financial stress, and a whole host of other challenges. And she decided to start a gratitude journal, writing down 3 things she was grateful for every day, no matter how small or insignificant they might seem.
That's a beautiful practice. It's amazing how such a simple act can have such a powerful ripple effect on our lives.
It really is. Over time, she noticed a significant shift in her mood and outlook. She started to feel more hopeful, more resilient, and more connected to the good things in her life.
That's the power of gratitude. It helps us reframe our experiences and find joy even in the midst of challenges.
Okay, I'm convinced. I'm starting a gratitude journal tonight.
I encourage you to. And Purkis also emphasizes the importance of savoring the simple things in life. That first cup of coffee in the morning, the feeling of sunshine on your skin, a good laugh with a friend.
Yeah, because sometimes we get so caught up in the big picture, in achieving our goals and checking things off our to-do lists, that we forget to appreciate those small moments of joy that make life so rich and meaningful.
Exactly. And those moments are actually the building blocks of a fulfilling life.
This whole conversation is making me realize that letting go is about so much more than just achieving specific outcomes. It's about shifting our entire mindset, our way of being in the world.
That's a profound insight, and this shift in mindset can have a ripple effect on all areas of our lives, including our relationships.
Speaking of relationships, how does this principle of surrender play out in that realm? It seems like letting go in relationships could be a recipe for disaster.
That's where things get really interesting. Purkis challenges the conventional notion of romantic love as a possessive, ego-driven force. We're conditioned to believe in finding the one and holding on to them tightly.
Right, like our happiness depends on finding that perfect partner and keeping them forever.
Exactly. But that kind of clinging and controlling can create a lot of pressure and insecurity in relationships.
It's like trying to force a square peg into a round hole. We end up trying to change our partners to say our idealized image of who they should be, rather than accepting and loving them for who they truly are.
And Purkis argues that true love requires a willingness to let go, to surrender our need to control our partners and allow them to be their authentic selves.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but also a bit skeptical.
Mm.
What does letting go actually look like in the context of a relationship?
It means releasing the need to change our partners, to fix them, or to mold them into what we think they should be. It means accepting them unconditionally with all their flaws and quirks.
So it's about embracing the whole package, the good, the bad, and the messy.
Exactly. And it also means surrendering our own expectations about how the relationship should be.
Yeah, because those expectations can create a lot of conflict and resentment, right? We set ourselves up for disappointment when reality doesn't match our idealized vision.
Precisely. Purkis suggests that we approach relationships with a spirit of curiosity and openness, allowing them to unfold organically rather than trying to force them into a predetermined mold.
That sounds both terrifying and incredibly liberating. Terrifying because it requires a lot of trust, and liberating because it allows for more authenticity and freedom within the relationship.
It's a delicate dance, but he argues that this attitude of surrender actually creates a stronger and more fulfilling connection.
Because when we're not trying to control our partners, we create space for them to fully blossom into who they're meant to be. And that, in turn, allows the relationship to evolve in ways we could never have predicted or controlled.
You've got it. And he emphasizes that surrender doesn't mean we become doormats or allow ourselves to be mistreated. It's about setting healthy boundaries and communicating our needs clearly and respectfully.
So it's about finding that balance between holding on to ourselves and letting go of our need to control the other person.
Exactly. And this reminds me of a couple I know who've been together for over 30 years.
Hmm.
When I asked them about their secret to a long-lasting relationship, they both said, "We learned to let go of the need to be right."
Wow, that's profound.
Mm.
Yes, so much conflict in relationships stems from that need to win, to prove our point, to be right, even at the expense of the connection.
And when we surrender that need to be right, we open ourselves up to a whole new level of understanding and compassion. We can start to see things from our partner's perspective, even if we don't agree with them.
It's like choosing love over ego, connection over conflict.
Beautifully put. And that's where true intimacy flourishes, in that space of acceptance, understanding, and unconditional love.
This whole conversation is making me realize how interconnected all these aspects of letting go really are. It's not just about mastering a set of techniques. It's about cultivating a way of being in the world that is grounded in presence, trust, and a willingness to surrender to something greater than ourselves.
That's a beautiful summary of what Purkis is trying to convey. And in the book, he takes this concept even further, suggesting that letting go can actually lead to a profound spiritual awakening.
Okay, now we're getting into the deep end of the pool.
Yeah.
What does he say about this spiritual dimension of letting go?
He explains that in many spiritual traditions, the ego is seen as the biggest obstacle to enlightenment. The ego is that part of us that believes we're separate from the divine, separate from each other, and separate from the universe itself.
And that sense of separation creates a lot of suffering, right? It leads to fear, loneliness, and a constant feeling of not being enough.
Exactly. So the goal is to transcend the ego and experience a sense of oneness, of
Mhm.
interconnectedness with all that is.
And Purkis believes that the practices we've been discussing, being present, letting go of thoughts and pain, surrendering to a higher power, these are all pathways to this spiritual awakening.
Precisely. He argues that these practices are not just about improving our lives in a practical sense. They're also about connecting us to something much greater than ourselves.
So it's like these techniques are tools for spiritual growth, not just for personal development.
Exactly. And he describes this state of oneness as pure consciousness, pure being, or simply the self, with a capital S.
Okay, now we're venturing into mystical territory. But I'm curious, how do we actually access this state of pure consciousness? Is there a specific technique?
Purkiss suggests various practices, including meditation, yoga, and spending time in nature. He also emphasizes the importance of cultivating compassion and loving kindness.
Because those qualities are expressions of oneness, right?
Hmm.
When we see ourselves as interconnected beings, we naturally extend compassion and kindness to others.
Exactly. And he argues that this spiritual awakening is not just about personal fulfillment, it's about transforming the world.
Okay, now that's a bold statement.
Yeah.
How does letting go transform the world?
He explains that when we release our own ego-driven desires and fears, we become more open and receptive to the needs of others. Our own personal transformation ripples outwards, creating positive change in the world.
So it's like our individual journeys of letting go can contribute to a collective awakening.
Precisely. And Purkis believes that this collective awakening is essential for creating a more peaceful, just, and sustainable world.
Wow, that's a powerful vision. It's like a chain reaction of positive change,
Yeah.
starting with each individual's willingness to surrender to something greater than themselves.
Exactly. And in the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some practical tools and techniques for integrating these principles into our everyday lives.
I'm excited to see how we can take these lofty concepts and make them actionable,
Ah.
bringing the power of letting go into our daily routines.
It's going to be a journey of discovery and transformation.
Stay tuned as we continue to unpack the power of letting go. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the power of letting go.
We've explored how this philosophy can impact our careers, our relationships, even our spiritual lives.
Yeah, so it's been quite a journey.
Now, let's get practical.
Exactly. We've covered some pretty profound concepts, but I'm curious, how do we actually integrate these principles into our everyday lives?
Well, Purkis offers a wealth of practical advice in the book. One of the simplest yet most powerful techniques is the practice of mindfulness.
We touched on mindfulness earlier, but I think it deserves a deeper dive. What does it actually look like in practice?
It's about cultivating a present moment awareness, bringing your attention to what's happening right now without judgment.
So instead of like replaying the past or worrying about the future, we're simply noticing what's happening in this very moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can practice mindfulness during any activity, whether you're, eating, walking, or even doing the dishes.
So it's not about adding more tasks to our already overflowing to-do lists. It's about bringing a different quality of attention to the things we're already doing.
Precisely. And Purkis also suggests setting aside a few minutes each day for formal mindfulness practice, like meditation.
Meditation. I've tried it before, but I always get so frustrated when my mind starts racing. It feels like I'm doing it wrong.
It's a common experience. The key is to approach meditation with a spirit of non-judgment. When those thoughts inevitably pop up, simply acknowledge them and gently redirect your attention back to your breath, a mantra, or whatever you're focusing on.
So instead of getting caught up in the whirlwind of thoughts, we're learning to simply observe them without getting swept away.
Exactly. It's like watching clouds drift across the sky. We don't try to control them. We just observe their movement and let them pass.
Okay, that's a helpful image. I'm going to give meditation another try with this new perspective.
I encourage you to. And Purkis also emphasizes the importance of connecting with nature as a way to cultivate presence and tap into a sense of peace.
Nature really does have a way of calming the mind and grounding us in the present moment.
It's like hitting the reset button on our nervous system. Even a short walk in the park can make a world of difference.
So it's about weaving these practices into our daily routines, finding small moments throughout the day to just pause, breathe, and reconnect with ourselves.
Exactly. And Purkis also offers specific guidance for applying these principles to our relationships.
So that's something I'm particularly interested in. How can we bring this philosophy of letting go into our interactions with our loved ones?
He emphasizes the importance of clear communication and healthy boundaries.
Those are essential for any healthy relationship.
Yeah.
But how do we go about setting boundaries in a loving way?
It's about clearly communicating our needs and limits without blaming or judging the other person.
So it's not about controlling our partners. It's about honoring ourselves and what we need to feel safe and respected in the relationship.
Exactly. And he also encourages us to practice forgiveness in our relationships.
Forgiveness is a powerful concept, but it can be incredibly challenging, especially when we've been hurt deeply.
It's true. But Purkis explains that forgiveness is not about condoning hurtful behavior. It's about freeing ourselves from the resentment and anger that can poison our hearts and prevent us from experiencing true love and connection.
So it's like releasing those negative emotions so that we can move forward with a clean slate.
Exactly. And forgiveness is ultimately an act of self-love. It's about choosing to let go of the pain and create space for healing.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. Any other tips for letting go in relationships?
Purkis suggests focusing on gratitude for our partners, appreciating their positive qualities and acknowledging the ways they enrich our lives.
Ah, gratitude again. It really does seem to be the magic elixir for a happier and more fulfilling life.
It's a powerful practice that can transform any relationship. When we focus on what we appreciate about our loved ones, we strengthen the bond of love and connection.
This is all starting to feel very doable. Like we don't have to become monks or gurus to experience the benefits of letting go.
Exactly. It's about incorporating these simple yet profound practices into our everyday lives. And Purkis's own story is a testament to the transformative power of this philosophy.
That's one of the things I found so compelling about the book. He's incredibly open and vulnerable about his own struggles with depression, career challenges, and relationship issues.
It makes his message feel authentic and relatable. It reminds us that we're all human, we all face challenges, and we don't have to go through it alone.
Exactly. And he emphasizes the importance of seeking support when we need it, whether from, therapists, mentors, or spiritual teachers.
We all need guidance and encouragement on this journey of letting go. And connecting with like-minded individuals can provide a sense of community and belonging.
This whole conversation has been incredibly insightful and inspiring. I'm starting to see letting go not as a destination, but as a lifelong journey.
It's a continuous process of surrendering, trusting, and opening to the flow of life.
And it's a journey filled with both challenges and rewards.
Absolutely. But the rewards are well worth the effort.
Because ultimately, letting go is about freeing ourselves from the limitations of our ego
Yeah.
and experiencing the boundless joy and freedom that's available to us in every moment.
Beautifully said.
Well, this deep dive into the power of letting go has been truly transformative. I feel equipped with practical tools and a renewed sense of hope.
It's been a pleasure exploring these concepts with you.
And we hope our listeners feel empowered to embark on their own journey of letting go.
May we all find peace, joy, and freedom through the practice of surrender.
Thank you for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep letting go.
Did you get any of that?